Namaskar everyone. As you all know, we have assembled here for the Archana Sharma Memorial Lecture. As the protocol of the Institute, I'm going to read a small life sketch of Srimati Sharma before we go on to the main schedule of our lecture. Professor Archana Sharma, daughter of Professor N.P. Mukherjee, was born on the 16th of February 1932 in Pune, Maharashtra, and had her early education in Rajasthan. She joined for her studies at the Department of Botany, University of Calcutta, and obtained MSc in the year 1951. PhD in 1955 and DSc in 1960. She had brilliant academic career throughout and was the second lady to have secured a DSc degree from the University of Calcutta. Professor Sharma joined the faculty of University of Calcutta in 1967 and became Professor of Genetics in the year 1972 in the Center of Advanced Study in Cell and Chromosome Research and Head of the Department of Botany in the year 1980. Professor Archana Sharma's principal research contribution was in the area of cytogenetics and environmental mutagenesis, covering both plant and human systems. A passionate teacher and dedicated researcher, Professor Sharma had developed newer staining and pre-treatment techniques for studying chromosome structure that are applied throughout the world. Her other research studies relate into induction of division in adult nuclei and cause of polyteny in differentiated tissues in plant. Cytotaxonomic investigation on flowering plants, assessment of chromosomal and genetical polymorphism in normal human populations in eastern India and their comparison with pathological conditions, assessment of genotoxic and clastogenic activity of environmental agents in subtoxic doses in exposed populations in relation to different modifying factors like diet, genetic predisposition, drugs, etc., and use of dietary factors and plants products in modulating the cytotoxicity of known pollutants, metals, and pesticides. These all were the field of interest of Mrs. Archana Sharma. Professor Sharma trained a large band of researchers in the area of cytogenetics, human genetics, and environmental mutagenesis, supervised the PhD work of over 50 students, and published over 350 research and review papers. She also wrote a number of books singly and also jointly with Professor A.K. Sharma, which were published by well-known national and international publishers like Harwood Academic Publishers, UK, Oxford, IBH, India, etc. Just before her death, she finished editing Plant Genome, Biodiversity and Evolution, Volume 1 to 7, jointly with Professor A.K. Sharma, published by the Science Publishers, Enfield, USA. She was one of the founder editors of the journal The Nucleus, which has recently been taken over by Springer and is running into its 52nd volume. Professor Archana Sharma was recognized by several learned and professional societies and was conferred with the fellowship of all three science academies of India and was elected General President of Indian Science Congress Association from the year 1986 to 1987. She was awarded the coveted Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize by CSIR, J.C. Bose Award, and National Lecturer by UGC. She got FICCI Award, Birbal Sahani Medal by the Indian Botanical Society, and also Ashutosh Mukherjee Medal in the year 1999 by the Indian Science Congress Association, and also India's civilian honor Padma Bhushan in the year 1984. In her death, the scientific community has lost not only a great scientist but also a great teacher. She was a highly religious person and initiated in the Sri Ramakrishna order by Srimad Swami Shankaranandaji Maharaj, the then president of the mission. She was a strong believer of human and cultural values and proponent of true scientific traditions and ethics in professional life. She leaves behind a band of followers to cherish her memories. This memorial lecture was created with the donation of her husband, Dr. A.K. Sharma. Unfortunately, for his ill health, he is not in between us today. Today, Dr. Somnath Bhattacharya, eminent speaker and also a fellow of University of Witwatersrand, Johannesburg, will deliver the Archana Sharma Memorial Lecture. He will speak on ancient Samkhya philosophy and modern quantum physics. Over to Dr. Bhattacharya. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Okay. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaskar, pranam, Abhinandan. It's a great pleasure to be here once again. I delivered a lecture in January on quantum computers, consciousness, blah, blah, blah. And then I was thinking that I made a some kind of my job was very incomplete, and I was thinking that I should come back and explain some the origin of this kind of philosophy and scientific understanding. My name is Somnath Bhattacharya. I didn't display it here. Actually, I am coming from South Africa, which is very far from your place, and I have been working in quantum physics, nanotechnology over 10 years there, happily settled, and we lead a large research group there to re-establish some of the fundamental aspects of quantum physics. I am not a philosopher, but 10 years before, when I moved to South Africa, I had a great opportunity to start this kind of subject, which is called Sankhya Darshan, and I found a remarkable similarity between this Sankhya Darshan, Sankhya system, number system, and the general practice of modern physics, especially quantum mechanics. Well, I'm trying to understand, I'm keep on searching and trying to establish the connection between these two great subjects. And the question I've been asking, just like all of you have started, let's say if you were born 2,000 years before, 3,000 years before, you didn't have any computers, you didn't have any instruments, how do you search for God? Or you have to understand where we came from, and you have to apply, some kind of reasoning, logic. Always we have been thinking that somebody is controlling us, which is non-existent or invisible, and then we try to relate ourselves with God, like Adristo, what is called. So I believe Kopil Muni used to think like us, and basically looked at the sky. We can find moon, different phases of moon, and then you can think of number one, then the different phases, positive, negative, darkness, light. Look at your finger, if your hand, and you can find 5 fingers. If you look at the 3 eyes, which is 3 types of Agnis, you can figure out that the number system. But what we will gain from this today? How do we apply these things, this concept, the number system, to develop a machine? That's the question. And I will tell three topics today. I hope you will not be bored with my talk. The first one is that how this idea of Samkhya philosophy influenced us, modern science. It's a huge story. We cannot say everything, but only just some of the famous scientists who were influenced by Samkhya philosophy. Then I shall speak little bit on the fundamentals of quantum mechanics, and the third one, what do you do with quantum mechanics? That means, how do you form or construct a machine? Imagine. So I have studied the book written by a very famous person, Sri Panchanand Tarkaratna, who used to be our neighbor. His house is just 5 minutes from my house in Bhattacharya. And I was searching a book on Samkhya Darshan 10 years before. And somebody told me, okay, go and find it there. It's out of print. You cannot find it. So I managed to get a photocopy of that book, and started reading and developed some of the very good ideas which are really practical and compared to the some modern development of science. In fact, the first book I read is not by Sri Panchanand Tarkaratna, but a book on Sankhya Karika by Swami Dibakarananda. But I didn't understand anything because I couldn't find any connection between Samkhya and modern science. You can search Google, you cannot find any good text, very authentic text, which can really compare these two things. Then I was very happy that I have to move on my own, and let's investigate how this great philosophy can improve our ideas. So the first one, that dualism. This idea of dualism or dualistic world is there everywhere in the world. It's not only in India, it is started, even you can find artifacts from other civilizations. But the important thing is that how it influenced the modern science. For example, we know that Newton, Leibniz, they were very much influenced by dualism. And then Leibniz developed this concept of binary notation, and that gave us recently, last century, digital computation. But we are not limited by digital computation, because the functionality of digital computer can be enhanced if you introduce a new mechanism, which is an uncertainty principle, which is the foundation of quantum mechanics. Now, all we know the history. Samkhya, Kopil Muni, actually he was born, he started thinking when Rig Vedas were established or composed by Rishi Gautam, and he started thinking on this cosmic evolution. And this is the backbone, or the first two chapters, second and third chapter at least, of Bhagavad Gita is based on Samkhya philosophy, all we know. But it also influenced Buddhism. Gautam Buddha studied Samkhya philosophy. Now many people say that this is a metaphysical, and it's only dualistic world it describes. But main idea is that how do you explain the world, Prakriti, nature, using the conservation, transformation, and dissipation of energy. So this is the most important thing in physics. If we study physics, you cannot avoid this kind of consideration, assumption. However, it was dropped by Vedanta. Some people believe because this is non-dualistic nature of Vedanta. Well, the main idea of Samkhya philosophy is Purusha, that means consciousness, and that is described as self-subject, and the Prakriti, which is matter, non-self object. Now, we believe that there is no real interaction under this Samkhya philosophy, but actually this is not true. There is some kind of interaction between Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is Adrishta, which is not visible, and Prakriti, you can see the manifestation of Purusha, Brahma, etc. Now, this circle I have downloaded from a standard text and then modified a little bit. So, our life, our Prakriti maintains a kind of cyclic order. It generates and it returns to equilibrium through different processes, and then it goes to non-equilibrium. It means it is inactive at some stage, get excited and then de-excited and comes back to the ground state. And this is one of the best example is our Rasa Leela. But this is, I'm not talking today. So basically I will try to explain this diagram, which is nothing but Purusha and Prakriti, consciousness, cause, origin, Adi Prakriti, Mool Prakriti, and it goes to Mahat, then it goes down to Ahankar, and then it gets split into the different parts, which is Sattva, Rajo, Tamo, etc., etc. Well, my interest lies on this part, Prakriti and Purus, and which is very important for us to develop computers and number systems. Well, I'll skip some of this slides because we have limited time, but if you have any question after my talk, feel free to ask me. Although I have to go back to my place tonight. Well, so how do you apply? How do you construct a kind of methodology which is applicable with people working in physics and technology? So we have to understand the energy and transformation of energy from energy to materials, how there is a kind of interaction, a transformation always. So you can think that it's a kind of potential energy which can get concentrated at some point, and there is a change of phase transformation, sudden change, and you can have an expansion, strong repulsion, and it can create a state of complete non-equilibrium. But it cannot stay ever at the state of non-equilibrium. So you have to regain the stability or equilibrium. So you need certain elements like force, mass, energy to create a state of equilibrium. This small part is my sketch. I don't know whether you can see or not. That's why I was checking the resolution of the projector. Well, this says the same thing, that we create a state of non-equilibrium, then we go back to equilibrium. And the energy is conserved and it plays well, and that is called Prakriti, but it's always connected to the consciousness. But somebody is guiding that, somebody is giving you the recipe. How do you basically apply this energy in different states? So this is basically order and disorder and symmetry, which is inactive. How do you break the symmetry and create a state which is non-symmetric? And this term is a very famous term in physics. Sorry, I have to use some of the terms, which is called broken symmetry. And this term, broken symmetry, was coined in 60s, 50s, 60s, and most of the Nobel Prizes since then were given. How do you explain this concept of broken symmetry? I'll come to this point. Now, this is it's not possible to say everything about Sankhya philosophy in this 1 hour talk, 40 minutes talk, but I have chosen a few the slokas. It's not that it's favorite, but I found it this very. It basically says the whole story of the Sankhya philosophy. So Dristo Badanu Sravika Sa Havisuddhi Khatati Shaya Jukta Tadhita Parito Shreyano Bhakta Bhakta Bigganat. Sorry for my Sanskrit, but it says that you have always a kind of competition. Always you have a competition between two objects, viparit. And this is the main thing which was formulated by a great Kapil Muni. And this explains basically starting from candle, burning a candle, and when we explain the origin of the fire, the flame of the candle, and that is nothing but a spectroscopic process which goes from the ground state to excited states. It decays with time, but you have to retain the states in such a manner so that you can have light from the candle. Then this sloka number 3, it explains the Mula Prakriti, Prakriti Vikriti 7, then Sodasakastu Vikaro na Prakriti Vikriti Purusa, etc. So it says the Purusa does not have any Vikriti, but Prakriti can have a Vikriti, disorder. That means it's breaking the symmetry. Now this concept is very much used in physics, science. Always we have some state which is unaffected, ground state, which never gets changed. Then we excite particles from ground state and we deal with the excited states. Now that excited state carries the information of the ground state. So you learn everything of ground state from the excited states. You cannot see the ground state. Now this Prakriti Purus you can explain, if not like Kapil Muni, but there is some analogy in physics, and this is a very elementary concept, that if a charge moves around some point, you can create a magnetic field, and that is the most elementary thing in physics, that the magnetic field is not affected by the charge. They are two different things, but they stay together. Well, now I come to one of the most interesting one, is that Tasmat tat sangjogada chetanam chetanadiva lingam gunakatritte cha tatha kartebya bhavattu dasina. It means that basically Purus is udasin and he just observes what is happening around itself or himself. Don't know whether Purus is man or woman, but the job of our Purusa is to observe what is happening around us. So basically it was thought that our sun is static, it really controls us, but it creates all this kind of our climatic changes and reflection from the water on the river or pond. It gives some kind of interference, and this is a very, very important thing to observe the interference. If you do not create a stable interference, you cannot move on, you cannot do anything. Apparently looks very simple, but it is really very difficult to create a good image from the reflection. So this all you know. This is the Lord Vishnu is lying on the serpent, and the Brahma is coming out of his navi, and that explains everything. I think this is the most important model in our religion or philosophy. And there are many different versions: Ardhanarishwar, Radha Krishna, Shiva Shakti. And then basically Thakur Sri Ram Krishna explained this many times, that we have to go through the state of Ardhanarishwar, that means Purus and Prakriti, they exist to coexist. And so if we understand and consider this Purus and Prakriti, they go together, then we have to see the other parts, which is Mahat Ahankar. There may be different opinions on this term called Ahankar, but as far as I know from this book, is that it's a kind of transformation. So something is trying to split itself, and one object is going to be split into many different objects, basically. So again, this is very important for us in our profession, that a transformation can give new features in the spectroscopy, which is a peak, and it's very difficult to find this peak while doing the experiment. And this I will explain in next 5 minutes. So what is this called? Is exchange. That means two things are always competing each other, exchanging the energy, and this is called the process of re-entrance. So if you start with the first vibration, you create many waves, but we always try to go back to capture the first vibration. And I am working in a material which is called condensed matter, condensed state. It's like a water, some kind of liquid which is very stable. We'd like to see some rise of waves in this condensed state. And I apply this kind of Abhiman for my study, so we can have a process, a change of basically transformation from one level to another level. So it goes through vacuum. Fluctuation wave creates heat. It can create a liquid state, which is plasma, and finally it ends up with matter. So this is a transformation from energy to matter. And you all, I'm sure that we know this, the difference between this Sattva, Raja and Tamo. The first one, which basically expresses that you see the real features and you determine the cause of equilibrium from the observation. And Rajas is the process which is always taking place, and Tamas is not a bad object. I think it's a very, very important for us. It is very heavy object. It retains the inertia, and it has a great combination with Sattva and Raja to stabilize the system. And in quantum mechanics, we use this kind of things, quantum wells, where we control this Sattva, Raja and Tamas. I'm skipping this kind of these cartoons, the images, that it's not only our culture, many different cultures, Western culture also, they studied the term called broken symmetry. How do you break 2 to 3? How do you change how do you break the symmetry? 0, 1, 2, 3, and many. And this was the artifacts were found in Egyptian tombs, Mesopotamia, and I have chosen a very good example of Panchanan Darkaratna from this book, and he described that Rajo Sattva Tamo is a combination, like a, what is called chola, and it has a shell, avaran, and that is Tamo, and the things interaction opposite Rajo Sattva. So a grain of P can explain this kind of prakriti, but to publish papers we need to have some standard methodology, which is a quantum well. So this is the barriers basically, and you are transmitting an electron from one side to another side, or light from one side to another side. If you do not have barriers, you cannot create a resonance. So you need to have obstacle, objections, resistance. Without that, you cannot create a quantum state. So we need this model every day, Rajo, Sattva, Tamo, to create a confined state, and that is the most elementary part of a device, electronic device or optical device. Now, I'm skipping some of the things. This is explained in Sankhya's Sankhya philosophy very clearly, and the explanation was given some kind of lamp, earthen lamp. So the flame, the material, the oil, and the cup, they work as Rajo, Sattva, Tamo, and we use the same concept for making a computer. This is just very quickly that if you explain how you can create fire, a flame. So basically you have to rub two sticks like many thousand years before, And you can replace these two sticks by two atoms, and it creates a state of non-equilibrium. Then an electron gets in, and then it creates an explosion, excess energy. And that creates a shock wave, and that basically creates the fire. And then they get de-excited and stabilize the flame. Sri Ramakrishna explained beautifully this Rajo Sakta Tamo. I'm skipping this slide for the time being, but this is not the end. You have basically many folds, many gunas, a combination 3 to 5, multiply 3 and 5, 6, 15 plus 1. You can use many hands basically, and you can improve your activities by just adding numbers. So basically the Western philosophy developed on mind and matter, and Newton tried to explain this concept in his principle, in his book. And Einstein also was greatly involved in the process of the transformation, that he used to argue that there is no matter or everything comes from energy. But we see today, we see everywhere this dualism. In particle physics, quark, in gravitation, any model is based on dualism. Here, if you want to explain the formation of star, you have to go through this path of dualism. Hawking radiation also. And then Thakur Sri Ramakrishna, he clearly said that the model, that means you take two fingers and just rotate, and one stage you can find this identity. That means it turns into the single object. Well, so if you look at electricity magnetism, the same thing. So one rotates clockwise, another rotates anti-clockwise. In Maxwell's equation, you have B and E, electric and magnetic field. They are orthogonal, perpendicular to each other, and they work together. Not a single thing works alone. So there is always a change between these two things. And we all follow this kind of concept, and we try to hide sometimes the fact that, and we claim that we discovered something, but the origin is there in the transformation between these two objects. They work together. Most importantly, the quantum mechanics, Heisenberg, and he acknowledged our Hindu philosophy and others. So he tried to formulate the great formula of this uncertainty principle. And what it shows here, the light passes through a hole, and creates an image on this screen. And depending on the size of the hole, you can manipulate the image. We can do it easily using a lamp, but in quantum mechanically it's not that trivial. It's very difficult to control. So we have to follow this dualism, and that says delta x, that means change of space, position, and change of momentum is greater than or equal to h over 4 pi. But you can have delta E, change of energy, change of time also is can be related. So there is always some exchange happening. And then that was formulated, let's say, nearly 100 years before. What is the present status? What we do today? So we considered the spin system, and one spin up, another spin is down, and we consider a combination up and down. And we create very, very small, tiny magnets where you can find only one spin or two spins. So if you look at this diagram, one up, one down, they combine, they form a state where they work together. So this kind of state, if you can create, then you can study the fundamentals of quantum mechanics, and it seems that this kind of, if you take a cup and then you try to break the symmetry, you create a anti-symmetry, that means some kind of bump, and this kind of potential actually generated many ideas in last 50 years, 60, 70 years, including Higgs boson and protein folding, and even in neural systems. This is not my subject, but what is very important, this same particle stays in both states. So because of quantum mechanics, quantum tunneling, you can imagine the same object lives in two places at the same time. So basically this gives a transistor, and this kind of basically non-linearity in the IV curve, a switching, and you can have the transmission of light through this kind of device or electrons. So I just wanted to show you one more very interesting phenomena. So let's say an electron is moving and it sees an obstacle. It splits into two halves, one wave function, and then it transmits through the other end, but it follows two paths at the same time. And this is only possible in quantum mechanics. You cannot see any analogy in classical mechanics. You cannot imagine, you cannot demonstrate it, only in quantum mechanics. And I believe this is really great that you have two entities, they are working together, hand in hand. Again, this is the real demonstration of a device, and it shows a positive or clockwise, anti-clockwise and clockwise direction. They work together at the same time, as if this negative or down spin is working with the up spin through a barrier. They are communicating with each other. Now if it is successful, you can connect many wells, many states, and create a large computer. And this is the architecture of a large computer. And this part is called qubits or quantum bit. And you can have two particles together at the same time. And this is a kind of picture which shows how it works, but I have chosen a funny, very nice picture. So this is a drinking bird, and this liquid and that liquid, they have a connection. This is because this bird is making a swing. And in our modern quantum computers, this process takes place always. You cannot kill this process, and then your quantum computer will stop. What is quantum computer? In the limited time, not possible to explain, but I would like to bring your attention. This slide is that some of the most famous companies like Google, NASA, IBM, they are working and they're competing each other to sell a new class of computer which is based on quantum mechanics. And actually I'm going next week to discuss this matter to NASA. Next Wednesday I will be there. And this is and we generally work with them basically to develop a quantum computer. Now from Samkhya, it's very difficult to imagine what is quantum computer, but just wanted to, so this has on and off state, but in quantum computers you can have many different combination on and off states. So just like flipping a coin, you can have many different directions, and each direction is well defined, and you can store the information from each alignment. So kind of things you can think an atom is the best example of quantum computer. Ground state, excited state, and they work together, ground and excited states. It's not just ground state or excited states. So they work together, and this is the fundamental principle of quantum computers. Anyway, so what is the purpose of quantum computers? I'm just keeping this very quickly. If you want to have a very large prime number, very large prime, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, not. If you want to have a very large prime number, so you need this for future quantum computers. And so a classical computer will take millions of years, quantum computer will take weeks or days or maybe seconds. So that is based on the material which is called superconductors. And the superconductivity was discovered 100 years, more than 100 years before. And you can see basically this is a Cooper pair. And they work together, not a single particle. It's a two particles working together is treated as one particle. So, and so it gives a kind of spatial kind of tunneling. This is called Josephson tunneling. So what you have a ring here, and you have a magnetic field. The current is moving in the ring. And you have the magnetic field which is passing through the ring, and it stores, and you have the transmission of Cooper pair from one side to another side. And this is nothing but a very advanced level of oscillator which creates the oscillation, and what you see is basically an oscillator which is very similar to an atom. So one is static, another is dynamic. One must stay static, another is dynamic. So basically, you have to start with a ring. You have to start with a ring, like it's shown here, and you have to put a particle inside. And this is a little bit complicated, but I'll try to explain to you. What you have to do, you have to split the ring into two halves. Or you have to split this pair of particles into two, and what happens, basically this is a kind of very advanced level of qubit just by splitting a ring into two halves. I'm just keeping some of the complicated part. So at the end, what you will see, that the current is oscillating in the ring. So you have two currents which are moving in two different directions, and this is the origin of these qubits. You can have many different kind of qubits which follow the same principle, and you can really think that two particles are moving together in the same ring. So one particle you take and you put in the two boxes, and if you put them in two boxes, then basically you can create a kind of flux qubit. And once you get this kind of flux qubit, you can add them up and you can have a perfect quantum computers. So recently, last year, 2016, the Nobel Prize was awarded to three gentlemen to bring the concept of the splitting of the ring and creating the state which is called vortex, like this. So you can see one is up, another is down, always duality. Always, you can have the particle is moving around magnetic field is moving around the particle. Both are identical. So this is the last, one of the last sloka of Samkhya, that he addressed the identity, the non-duality. Many of us do not follow this non-duality of Samkhya. It is clearly stated in slok 67. So basically what is that? Once again, you have a 0 and you have a 1. 0, 1. It looks funny, but you should know how, when you can transform 0 to 1. And this is a really very important concept, which is a very hot topic, fundamental research in physics, topology. How do you break a space? How do you create the 0 and 1 state? How do you precisely control this kind of state? What is the stability of these states? And I will stop for today. But before I stop, I just would like to thank Supananandaji Maharaj, Swami Samkhya, who actually brought me here, and also Swami Sweetanandaji Belur Math, who visited our place in South Africa, and we had a little bit of discussion on this kind of topic. And then I got the inspiration. I mean, I should try to explain some of my ideas humbly in front of you. This is the place Bhattacharya, my native, and this is he was Panchanan Tarkaratna, son is Srijim Naitirtha, and I have been studying this subject with his grandson, who also passed away 2 years before, 2015, very sad, and we had a great discussion and to understand this Sankho, also Sirsi Chondi. I learned a lot from this very good book. I'm having a copy. I'm carrying a copy also, always. Gita Tatte Sri Ramakrishna. I mean, his words are final, undoubtedly, about understanding of Rajo Sattva Tamo. This explanation we cannot really forget. And this gentleman also was a very good friend of mine, passed away in 2015. Yes, 2015. Who first brought me into this subject, who pushed me to go through this path 10, 15 years before. I'm very thankful to my students in my group, my university, funding agency, Google, NASA, etc. And this is basically very elementary discussion on Sankho philosophy, only Prakriti and Purush. But if you want to go in deeper level, that Rajo Sattva Tamo and all these fivefold symmetries, etc., it's really complicated. Basically, I'm sure somebody is trying to rediscover, reinvent some of the understanding of Sankho, and I'll stop here.